Bow your heads with me. Lord, we thank you for the rain. We ask that you make it gentle and enough. We ask for our first responders to be protected as they go about their jobs. We ask you to bless our military and their families as their military volunteers for harm's way. We pray for the people of Egypt and as the tensions escalate. We pray for our leaders in Washington to do the right thing in responding to this uprising. We thank you for our city staff that prepares this meeting for us, and we ask you to bless our deliberations and the people that come before this commission. In your name, we pray.
Please join me in saluting this great nation of ours.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Have a roll call, please.
Commissioners Diana Cook, Cassandra Harvey,
Present.
Raj Mali, absent. Fabian Teresiano,
Here.
Vice Chair Randy Hall,
Here.
Chairman James Bose.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I heard from Commissioner Malley today, and unfortunately he was unable to be here this evening. However, he's sort of on a work assignment over there off Avenue H near the Antelope Valley Freeway. He said it's work, so we'll excuse him tonight only this one time, right? What do they call that over there? Oh, yeah, the Antelope Valley Fair, that's it. So, tonight, public business from the floor. If an individual is unable to stay for the entire meeting, we offer a period of time, a total of 10 minutes for individual speakers, and their comments would be limited to 2 minutes each. If we have any early speakers, Mr. Ludicky?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Then anyone wishing to address the Commission on any agendized item is asked to complete a speaker's card for the recording secretary and identify the agenda item you'd like to discuss. Each person will be given an opportunity to address the Planning Commission at such time the item is discussed. Speaker cards are available at the rear of the chamber. Individual speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. For the record, we have received a number of items. On agenda item number 2, which is a general plan amendment, zone change, and a conditional use permit, we've received a added condition number 14 and 15 on the condition list to the master list, to the SOMAS and the U.S. TOPCO portions of that. We also received via email notification Friday response to comments, which was posted on the city's website for everyone to review. On agenda item number 3, conditional use permit 1308, we've received a revised floor plan. Good grief. Say that fast 3 times. On item number 4, on tentative parcel map 72266, there's an added condition number 3. We also received, for the record, on item number 2, an uncontested letter. On the new public hearings, item 3 and 4, we also received uncontested letters. First item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of July 15, 2013. May we have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the minutes from the regular meeting of July 15, 2013.
Thank you.
I second that.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right, with Commissioner Harvey abstaining because
I was
you're
absent.
here.
I was absent, so an abstention.
All right, thank you. All right, first item on the next item on our agenda is a continued public hearing of General Plan Amendment Number 13-01, Zone Change Number 13-01, and Conditional Use Permit Number 13-05. So the public hearing this is a continued public hearing, and the hearing is open. So we've received an uncontested letter. Do we have speakers on this item, Mr. Ludicky?
I have no cards, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We'll hear a brief staff report, please, since there's been I don't know how many untold hours dedicated to this project and response, so it certainly deserves that acknowledgement and thanks. Please go ahead.
Chairman Vos and Commissioners, what you have before you tonight is a 92.7-acre solar facility leased to 3 separate solar developers. This would result in a total of approximately 13.3 megawatts of solar facilities divided between 3 separate solar sites, for lack of a better word. On the northern portion of the property, you have a site which will be developed by Somas. On the southwestern portion of the property, you have a site that will be developed by Topco. And on the portion of the property which is east of 25th Street East, you have a facility that will be developed by Morgan Solar. These 3 facilities would have solar panels ranging between 6 and 8 feet tall. One of the facilities is fixed solar, one is single access tracking, and the other one is dual access tracking. All 3 facilities will be completely surrounded by fencing and a 10-foot landscaped buffer. Along 25th Street East, you will have 12 feet of property dedicated for a equestrian trail facility in accordance with the city's master plan of trails. You have previously received responses to comments submitted by LIUNA, which is the laborers union. The letter that you referenced today as being an uncontested hearing letter is from their attorneys stating they no longer have any issues with this project, and they are in full support of it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding this project.
Thank you. There may be some. It's interesting that at last hearing we received 150-some pages of comments from, LIUNA, whatever it's called, a union represented by Lazaro Dury, a law firm that specializes in bringing issues before governing agencies relative to their union workers and attempts to leverage, in my opinion, applicants to engage their union members so they'll waive the concerns they raise under CEQA. So tens of thousands of dollars were spent, undoubtedly, by their union to produce this, which obliged us to continue the hearing and acknowledge it. And you've produced 110 pages of response to comments. About 90 of them belong to this doorstop. I have it about right?
That's correct.
However, there were other comments on this particular project from the Antelope Valley Air Quality Management District, Department of Transportation, Lahontan, Regional Water Quality Control Board, Office of Planning and Research, and City of Palmdale, and Ms. Kovacs. At any rate, you did respond to them all, and our members may have some comments on those. I'm not sure. So if anyone does, please just speak right up.
My comment is thank you for your diligence and thoroughness.
You're welcome.
I'd like to echo Jim's comment about using this body as a labor negotiating forum. It's not really our purpose. Our purpose is to follow the laws that the state puts down for development, and to almost be held hostage by this process was very interesting and enlightening for me to see, and probably the future.
Anyone else? I guess I found it the most interesting was the dissertation on pocket gophers and alfalfa fields. I thought that was really worth the time I spent reading it, which didn't have a doggone thing to do with this project. However, it's part of the paper shuffle that was provided to it. And we reviewed it.
Don't forget the avian strikes on the windmill blades that aren't even in this project.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting as well. So they bring issues before us that had nothing to do with the design of the project, nor did any of the, quote, experts ever visit the site to make their responses and to draw a conclusion.
At the end of the report, Dr. Smallwood made some comments about the scientific method that I will probably put in my book of things to remember, because he did violate a few of those himself in that report, which was well picked out by Jocelyn here.
The only issue I'd like to bring up, and I'm not certain that it's that there's support in the commission. However, one of the conditions of approval, or I should say one of the conditions of approval on each project, have to do with hours of operation, the construction of the project, and the city ordinance allows a certain window of construction opportunity. However, evening construction is 8 p.m., I guess. They have to cease operation at 8 p.m., can start before 6 or 7.
7 a.m., 8 p.m. to 7 a.m., no construction is allowed.
And that's Monday through
Monday
Saturday.
through Saturday, Sunday no construction, Sunday and holidays no construction at all.
Right. And I've had discussions with staff on this, just from my own point of view, considering the proximity to the soccer center and the fact that there's the activities that will take place, even though we don't know what the phasing plan of these developments are. We do know there's 3 separate developments, and one of them, I guess it's Somas, has an agreement with Edison for power, right?
Correct.
However, the other 2 do not.
Correct.
So, but when you read some of the conditions of development, minimal excavation or grading, those kinds of things, the concern I have, and clearly stated, have to do with the potential of fugitive dust during large events at the soccer center. Basically, the fall of this year, when there's a whole lot of soccer activity out there. Now, it is true that the large portion of the development, Somas, is a substantial distance away, and it is tending on the north side of that, and our northeast wind direction would tend to probably not impact the soccer center. However, I just raised the issue, and I know what the city ordinance says, but we do have the authority to make changes to that if we wish. I just put it on the table, and if anyone wants to take up the issue, great. If you don't, that's okay too.
Do you mean like stopping construction at 5:30 instead of 8?
You know, possibly, or not on Saturday, when most of the tournaments and heavy activity in the soccer center take place. At least that's my understanding. I mean, I can certainly be corrected if anyone wants to share with that. Sure. Any of the staff want to share with your concept of the soccer center and how it operates.
Brian is probably better qualified to answer that. The one thing I would point out is that even if construction is not occurring, so after hours or Saturday, Sunday, holidays, the developer is still required to control dust. So if it got windy and there was dust blowing, they would be required to come out over the weekend or on a holiday and maintain that same watering schedule to keep fugitive dust from blowing.
And that's important to understand, and I appreciate your comment. And it is clear from Public Works as well as our Antelope Valley Air Quality Management District, the requirements of Rule 403 and our own requirements within the city. So, but I've raised this issue before on weekend operation, and we've had some instances in the past where code enforcement doesn't work on the weekends here unless they are specifically assigned. Is that correct?
That is my understanding.
Right. So if there are issues that would involve our oversight, ours being the cities, we don't have staff or anyone really to evaluate that on a weekend.
The sign that's required to be posted on the fence in accordance with Rule 403 mandates that there is a contact person's information along with a 24-hour phone number in which someone can be reached. So we actually
Someone where? Someone
with the
in
developer,
our agency or
the
someone?
developer contractor, so they can come out and
Okay.
water.
All right. So, no, I've got that part. But the enforcement aspect of it is 8 to 6, Monday through Friday in this agency. How Air Quality Management District operates, I'm not certain. But the enforcement arm of this agency doesn't work weekends very often.
No, but we did have a dust blowing incident for CUP 1212 over by Lancaster Baptist, and Vicki from the Antelope Valley Air Quality Management Board called city staff, and city staff made sure the developer went out. So, I mean, it does work after hours. There just may not be a code enforcement officer driving around to get the problem corrected.
Okay. That's good to hear. Good news. Because of the concerns raised by agencies as well as the public, not necessarily on this project, but previous projects we've considered. So the fugitive dust issue is an issue. It's a real issue, and I want to be comfortable that we're addressing it properly, and apparently we are.
On the hours of operation, only reason I would want to limit their construction time would be probably to limit the amount of overtime that one group would be able to get, but I don't want to slow the developer down in making their project grow.
Right. I don't either.
Chairman Bose, I do have another question, if I may.
Go ahead.
So, Jocelyn, what is the actual process? Is there a process in place other than a phone number being posted on signage, or?
In accordance with Rule 403, every developer is required to prepare a dust control plan and get that dust control plan approved by the Antelope Valley Air Quality Management Board prior to the issuance of any permits. So until the Air District is happy with the measures identified for stabilized surfaces, dust control, they don't get a permit from the city for grading or for construction. And it outlines all of the steps that the developer and any of their contractors are required to follow in order to control dust on the site.
So as we all know that dust sometimes comes out of nowhere in this valley. You can wake up and it's still, and by 10 or 11 o'clock, it's extremely windy. So from that point, what's the process?
The developer, as they're working, is required to, however they choose to do it. They can do it with chemical soil stabilizers. They can do it with water. Their site is required to be stabilized. They are also required to have something in place to manage it while they're not at work. And even after construction is completed, that would all get laid out in their dust control plan that the district has to approve.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Could you describe what stabilized soil is and why it's important and what it would cost? And I've heard that there's something coming out from the AQMD that they want, the local one, that they want to be sprayed on these sites that will actually grow or something like that. Have you heard of that also?
The Air District is looking at a number of different measures, and they're trying to come up with a series of conditions that developers would have to comply with to control the dust problem. But basically, a stabilized surface is something that's not producing dust when water or wind blows across it. So you can use a chemical binder if that surface isn't going to be disturbed. So after construction is over, you can spray like a chemical binder on it, and it forms a crust, which is what you need in order to prevent the wind from blowing. Water is typically used during construction to make sure that there aren't any loose particles that are capable of blowing. I know they've looked at, maybe installing vegetation under the panels. That's something that's been toyed with. One of the Air District scientists told me that she was really happy with the idea of Bermuda grass because it would grow really well and it would never come out. There are other options, pea gravel, mulch. I mean, there's a lot of different things that they can look at, but the developer is ultimately required to come up with a plan to stabilize their site during construction and operation.
Does the city have a list of approved ways to stabilize the soil that we can make sure that it's done?
The city does not. The Air District is looking into that, so is the Antelope Valley Resource Conservation District.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting, one of the comments from the Antelope Valley Air Quality Management District talks about revegetation in our environment is extremely difficult. So they've gone on record saying it's 80% failure rate, even with supplemental irrigation. So it's interesting that they would make that statement, but it is, from my understanding, that is in fact the case. So even though we are conditioning this to have minimal grading, there still is a topographical change in I mean, it's not a flat piece of real estate. It's got some humpy, bumpy areas in it, particularly on the west piece that Topco is involved with. Assuming I'm reading this plan correctly, that doesn't have the topography identified. However, I'm assuming they're 1-foot contours on the map that we have.
I would assume so.
So, I mean, there's some mounds and all sorts of interesting things out there. But anyway, appreciate your comments and responses. And as I said, I don't know if I was very clear on this, but as I said earlier, we appreciate the effort, certainly, that you have engaged in, certainly under Mr. Ludike's direction, but we know how much of a load this has been for you and for our entire staff in response to comments on this particular project. So thank you.
I'm sorry, I did not get a response. I'm able to go back.
Excuse me, I think you were late, and in the agenda, if you wish to make comments on this project, you need to fill out a speaker card and give it to Mr. Ludeke, and then when we have speakers, we'll be happy to call on you. So, any other comments from anyone? None? All right. And this young lady is interested in speaking to us, so we'll wait for her. There are no applicant representatives here, but as I pointed out, to speak to us, is that correct, Mr. Ludeke?
No, there are representatives.
That want to speak to us?
I don't know if they wish to speak, but they are
I don't know
present.
either, because they haven't identified if they do or they don't. So,
There is an applicant representative present. They are only here to answer questions if you have specific questions to ask.
okay, thanks. So, does anybody have any questions of the applicant? Maybe we'll have one after our speaker. So, who's the speaker, please?
Ava Kovacs.
Ms. Kovacs, yes, thank you. And welcome.
Thank you. I just want to say I didn't get a response from you.
That's all you have to say?
Yeah, because when I came in, I heard that Ava Kovacs got a response, and I didn't.
Actually, there was a response written. We've seen it, so I'll ask staff for their comment on that regard. But is that all you have to offer to us, Ms. Kovacs?
Yeah, I'm just concerned what your response was to me, because
Okay.
I didn't get it.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Wayne?
Responses to her comments were prepared. They are included in the responses to comments packet that was posted online on Friday. Those comments went point by point through the issues that she raised. I don't have the responses in front of me. The ones I can think of off the top of my head with respect to Plant 42. Plant 42 was involved in the process. They were given copies of the site plan. They were sent copies of the initial study. This project does not interfere with their operations or the operations of the airport. Her property is zoned as industrial. Having solar panels across the street should not affect the value of her property. However, the economic impacts associated with the project are not an environmental issue and therefore are not discussed in an initial study. However, Commission is always welcome to take that under consideration. And if anybody has the responses to comments in front of them and can tell me what the rest of the issues were, I'd be more than happy to summarize them.
Pretty accurate. Good memory. Under CEQA, the obligation of the agency to respond to comments and publish them is a requirement. However,
Only under EIRs.
but there's no obligation to respond directly to the commenter. Would that be correct?
That is correct. And to actually do an official responses to comments, it is a requirement under the preparation of an EIR. That's what gets incorporated in your final EIR. It is not a specific requirement of a mitigated NADAC.
But it's good policy in the city.
That is correct.
And we typically do that in all cases when we do receive written comments or even comments at a hearing.
She also had a comment on the aesthetic blemish on the land. Aesthetics are a fairly subjective issue. These sites will be between 6 and 8 feet high in terms of development. That is substantially lower than what a single-family home would be. They will be surrounded by fencing and 10 feet of landscaping around the perimeter of each facility. That landscaping will grow up to be at least the height of the fence and will screen the panels, for the most part, from view. She also had an issue on the impact on the environment. Without a specific issue to address, I can't really provide a comment or a response to it. There was an initial study prepared that went through all of the resources areas considered under CEQA. And the same thing goes with any unforeseen hazards. CEQA doesn't require the analysis of speculative or unknown impacts. So all impacts known with the project have been addressed. If issues arise that were not addressed, they will be addressed at the time the issue is noted.
Bringing up speculative kind of makes one of the points that Ms. Kovacs makes about affecting property values. We all have an expectation that the empty field across from our house will still be empty 20 years from now, but in a growing city, that's not a likely thing to have happen. There is infill development, there is continuous development, and this property, as you said, was zoned industrial, so there could have been some pretty good-sized buildings put in there.
Her property is zoned industrial. The property for the proposed project is actually right now zoned as park, and rural residential 1, which is rural residential housing, 1 dwelling unit per acre. What I would like to point out is that property values are an economic impact, and economic impacts are not environmental impacts under CEQA.
I was just trying to make it clear because there's always somebody that has that thing that they want to bring up is it wasn't like that before. Now it's different. There is a constant change. We are in the change business. It has to continue to grow. And that's the process that we do here is try to make it as pleasing as possible and make sure that we cover all the bases or go through the big giant reports to make sure that we don't step on an endangered species or something. I purposely pronounced that correctly. Thank you.
Pretty close. Thank you. Anyone else? No? All right. Do we have any other speakers?
I have no other cards, Mr. Chairman.
The applicant's representatives are here. If they care to address us, they certainly have an opportunity. They're not required to. No? Going once?
I'd love to hear how they're going to do that grading on that hill like you have been talking about, what their plan is, or...
Right, very carefully.
The actual applicants who are present are with SOMAS and SOMAS FMG. They actually have a very flat piece of property at the northern half of the property. I'm not sure how TOPCO plans on grading their portion, which is somewhat hilly.
But in this case, TOPCO doesn't have a power purchase agreement.
Nor do they have an interconnect agreement with Edison.
They do?
They do not.
They do not.
So they have nobody buying their power, and they have no way to tie into the grid at this point.
So until those issues are solved, the project it won't necessarily go forward.
That is correct.
And that's the same with the one adjacent to it.
Correct. Everything south of Avenue K8, I think that's K8,
Right.
K12. Everything south of K12, the big square and the narrower rectangle, those two portions do not have power purchase agreements, nor do they have interconnect agreements.
So a portion of the site was rural residential 1, and the recommendation is to change it to rural residential 2.5, which
That is correct.
is lowering the density substantially.
That is correct. This application was filed prior to the adoption of the residential zoning update. In that update, we revised the requirements so that you can only have solar facilities in rural RR 2.5. Because this predated the adoption of that, they could have proceeded, but since we were already doing a general plan amendment and zone change to change the property zoned as park, we're just applying it to the entire project, so that it'll all be RR 2.5.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions or comments? So then, without objection, we'll close the public hearing and consider a motion on the recommendations. There's actually 2 recommendations, so it requires 2 motions.
I move that we adopt resolution number 13-08, recommending to the City Council approval of general plan amendment number 13-01 and zone change number 13-01 on the subject property.
I have a second, please.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. And we'll consider a motion on the second recommendation, please.
Okay, I further recommend adopting resolution number 13-09, approving conditional use permit number 13-05. The approval of CUP number 13-05 is not valid until the effective date of general plan amendment number 13-01 and zone change number 13-01.
Thank you. Have a second, please.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Further comments, questions? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Very good, thank you, and good luck with the project. All right, next item is a new public hearing item. This is a conditional use permit number 1308. This is for a new restaurant. So, without objection, the public hearing is open on this matter. And we do have an uncontested letter on this particular project. However, this is a site that has been before us a couple of times before, I think, and has a history of operation that we're familiar with. So, do we have speakers on this one, Mr. Ludicky?
I have no speakers cards, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anyone here care to hear a staff report? Anyone? Nope. All right then.
Yeah, I do have a
Oh,
comment.
go ahead.
I went over, walked the site today, and one of the things that this map is not showing is there are 2 additional restrooms inside the physical space of this facility. So I was separate from the ones that are shown on the floor plan itself. I know we had discussion.
Yeah, we did receive a revised floor plan that looks just like the one that was provided to us last week.
Except it has the extra door.
Maybe. So, I mean, is that what you're looking at? The same. So what you're saying then is that there are restrooms inside the space as opposed to along with the food court restrooms, I guess you'd call them. That'd be about right. Okay, very good. Just so I should have mentioned this earlier, just so the public understands. We have a meeting 1 week prior to this meeting, which is a public meeting. However, we rarely have public attend, where staff presents these items to us in advance of this meeting. However, we do not deliberate. We have an opportunity to ask our questions and consider the staff recommendations, and more often than not, things change between last Monday and this Monday. So, at any rate, so that happened to be one of the questions that was raised last week as it related to the restrooms. So, appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. All right. Anything else from anyone? Nope. All right, then. It would be appropriate to close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion on this matter.
I'll go ahead and make an motion that we adopt resolution number 13-12, approving conditional use permit number 13-08.
Thank you. Have a second, please.
A second?
Thank you. And just before I vote, I just want to say thank you to staff and also to the applicant for sharing with the neighboring tenants the proposed use. And we appreciate the applicant doing that, to at least notify your neighbors that there's a new opportunity there, and if they had any issues, they certainly could share them with us. All right, please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next item is item number 4, which is tentative. It's a tentative track map, parcel map. Let's see. I believe it's a parcel map. It's indicated on the agenda as a track map, but it is a parcel map.
Saying goodbye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. Oh, good luck. Didn't realize who that was. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, next item is tentative parcel map number 72266. So without objection, public hearing is open. The applicant is Dennis Persley. And as we pointed out previously, we have an uncontested letter on this particular item. So do we have any speakers on this, Mr. Ludicky?
We have no speakers cards, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments? Only question I have is you could tell us about the dead end on 26th Street West and how the condition that you're recommending here, how that impacts the ability to turn around, or if it does impact that. So if I understand the condition, there's a 4-foot-high masonry wall that has to be installed at the end of the improved 26th Street. Would that be right?
That's correct. And that's something that we typically do in tracts or parcel maps where only partial of the area is developed, and so the street has yet to go through. Ultimately, it'll go further north, but to try and prevent people from accessing north on private property, we build this temporary wall at the end of the street. As far as being able to turn around, fire department, if that's what you're referring to, as long as the road is a specific width, which this one is, and as long as the street isn't over a certain length, they can either back out of the street and/or there are driveways that are provided at the end of the street that they can turn around in.
Okay. Tell me about the detention basins that are outlined on the parcel map. I'm assuming those are proposed detention basins. Identified as future basins.
The applicant is showing, looks like 2 future basins, actually 3. Since this property drains in a northerly direction, it appears as though they're proposing them for the runoff. I don't know, perhaps the applicant is here, the engineer, maybe he can speak to that a little better than I can.
Okay. Well, it's identified on the map, but it's not a condition that I saw, so maybe I didn't read it right, but I found it unique that 1-acre subdivisions have proposed on-site detention basins in a residential area. I don't know that I've ever seen that before in our community.
Right, that is not something that we would condition because of the size of the lot, the 1-acre lots. And the amount of area that's being developed, normally things can be handled on-site and additional basins are not required, but
Maybe Mr. Muntz will share with us his comments. Thank you, and good evening.
Chairman and Commissioners, we're here on behalf of the applicant tonight. I'm Barry Munz with Antelope Valley Engineering. The concept for the basins is that these are larger lots. It's very difficult to grade these size of lots. We'd have to use 3-4 feet of fill to tilt the lot to get the lot to drain to the street. So the concept is that these we're drain the front or pad area of these lots to the street, and then the rear yards of these pads will remain a small sump duck pond, if you would, basically in the back of these lots that will maintain drainage in the backyards so that we do not end up in a condition where we have cross-lot drainage. We are not intending for any drainage to drain from one lot across the back of the neighbor's lot. That will avoid any kind of issues we might see with drainage. The developed area of these lots, which would be the pad areas, which are outlined with the dashed areas, that would be, upon development, that would be shaped in such a manner that drainage would drain to the street. But to get the entire pad to drain to the street, we'd really have to do some changing of the grades. And we're, the intent is to leave these pretty much natural, except for the areas that we would develop where the pad would be. That's the concept of those small drainage areas.
So the developed queue that's running across it now from the south to the north,
yes,
you're capturing that on the first lot, or you're just letting that transition through?
The off-site drainage that would impact this will actually be collected by the street. The L8 there, or I believe that's L8, there will actually collect anything running from off-site. That will collect it and run it down 26th Street to the north. Drainage from the undeveloped portions of each lot will be maintained within each lot, and that's why we have those small basins.
So you have curb, gutter, and sidewalk,
yes,
meandering sidewalk apparently on the south end of the development on L8, and a rural residential street pattern on whatever it is, 27th Street going north.
that is
Similar to what's on the west side of the street.
that is correct. Yes, we plan on matching the same treatment on both sides of the street there, and so LA does intercept the drainage routed to the north on 26th Street, and then the lots themselves, upon development, those lots themselves will maintain their own drainage.
Okay. So
A lot of times, normally, we won't show that on a map, but there is a policy within the design guidelines of the city that doesn't allow us to have cross-lot drainage.
well, it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably a pretty good policy, isn't it?
Yes, it works.
Well, it's a solution. I thought it was, anyway. So, you've seen the revised condition. I'm assuming we've got the comment letter that you've accepted the conditions. I'm assuming you saw the revised condition number 3 as it relates to the temporary walls and the existing walls, and how you're going to design that to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works.
Yes, that is not a problem. We understand that. That's a typical condition situation that we've done in the past as well.
Yeah, because the lot configuration on this is different than the project to the west.
It is different, and we did look at that several different times and try to figure out, but we wanted to do it this way due to landscaping treatments. We wanted the lots to face L8, so those were the front yard, and L8 could be landscaped instead of being a side yard where we'd have to develop, might have other aspects of the development there.
Similar to some of the neighbors, yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Nope? All right, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, then. Anything else? So, staff, nothing? Okay. So without objection, we'll close the public hearing and consider a motion on this matter.
I move that we adopt resolution number 13-3, approving tentative parcel map number 72266.
Okay, it's 13-13, right?
13-13.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I second.
Thank you. Any further comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. And the last item, action item on our agenda is a recommendation. Well, we need to open a public hearing on the housing element and consider granting a 30-day continuance till our next Planning Commission meeting. So so the public hearing is open. Anyone wishing to hear a staff report on that? Nope? Okay. Then the public hearing will remain open, and the recommendation is before us to consider a motion.
I make a motion that we grant a 30-day continuance to the September 16th, 2013 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
And there is a workshop tomorrow evening on the housing element here at City Hall, right? It's
6 p.m.
6 p.m., is it?
in the planning conference room.
Oh, really? Okay.
I will be unable to attend that. I have prior engagement tomorrow night.
Yeah, so if we have more than 3 members attend, do we have to notice this as a public, it's a workshop, we don't have to notice it as a hearing or a meeting, do we?
If more than 3 of you attend, I'll just ask that you sit separately
Okay.
and don't talk to each other.
Time out.
We like to talk to one another.
I know.
All right, great, thank you. So it brings us to director's announcements. That was your announcement. Don't talk to one another. Would that be it, Mr. Ludicky? Gotcha.
Yeah, I guess
That's a gotcha.
I guess that will suffice.
That's pretty good gotcha.
That is my comment for the evening.
Thank you. Oh, my. All right. Our commission agenda is it's fair time, so if you have tickets to Sheryl Crow, you better get on the road and get over there. If you don't. All right. Anyone else have any comments? Fabian, do you have something you want? Nope. Anyone? Nope. All right, great. So then, public business from the floor on non-agendized items. This portion of the agenda allows the members of the public to speak to us on non-agendized items. Speakers would be limited to 3 minutes each. Do we have any speakers that'd like to address us?
I have no cards, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anyone? No? All right, then. We stand adjourned to a special meeting on agenda review for Monday, September 9, 2013 at 5:30 p.m. in the Planning Conference Room here at City Hall. Thank you all.